I was a college student who needed some extra cash. I decided to sell some of my old stuff on Craigslist. I had a lot of things that I didn't use anymore, such as books, clothes, and games. I posted some ads and got a few responses. Most of them were normal and polite, but one of them was weird and creepy. It was from a guy who wanted to buy my old laptop. He said he was interested in it and asked me to meet him at his place. He gave me his address and phone number. He also said something that made me uneasy. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." I thought that was a strange thing to say. Why would he mention that? Or was he trying to hide something? I decided to ignore it and give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just awkward and nervous. I agreed to meet him and drove to his place. It was a run-down apartment building in a sketchy neighborhood. There was no sign of life, except for a dim light in one of the windows. I parked my car and called him. He answered and said, "Hey, I'm glad you made it. Come on up, I'm in apartment 13. I hung up and walked to the door. It was unlocked and creaked open. I stepped inside and saw a dark and dirty staircase. There were no lights, no signs, no numbers. There was only a smell of death. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wondered what I had gotten myself into. I climbed the stairs and reached the 13th floor. There was only one door at the end of the hall. It had a sign that said, "Welcome to Hell." I heard a laugh from behind the door. It was him. He said, "Hey, come on in. I've been waiting for you." He opened the door and looked at me. He had no eyes, only empty sockets. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." He lied. I was a musician who loved to buy and sell instruments. I had been to many pawn shops, but I wanted to try something different. I wanted to go to a Craigslist seller who had a rare and vintage guitar. I did some research and found a listing for a Gibson Les Paul from the 1950s. It was not on any website, and it had no reviews or ratings. It was perfect for me. I contacted the seller and agreed to meet him at his place. He gave me his address and phone number. He also said something made me uneasy. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." I thought that was a strange thing to say. Why would he mention that? Or was he trying to hide something? I decided to ignore it and give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just awkward and nervous. I drove to his place and saw a trailer in the middle of nowhere. There was no sign of life except for a faint light in the window. I parked my car and got out with my money. I walked to the door and knocked. He opened the door and smiled at me. He had no teeth, only gums. He said, "Hello, musician. I've been expecting you." He invited me in and showed me the guitar. It was beautiful. It had a sunburst finish, a rosewood fretboard, and a gold-plated hardware. It looked like it was worth a fortune. He said, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yes, it's amazing." He said, "Do you want to try it?" I said, "Sure." He handed me the guitar and a cable. He pointed to an amplifier in the corner. he said. "Plug it in and play." I plugged the cable into the guitar and the amp. I turned on the amp and adjusted the volume. I strummed the guitar and heard a sound. A horrible sound. A sound of screams, cries, and moans. A sound of pain, fear, and agony. A sound of souls trapped in the guitar. I dropped the guitar and looked at him in shock and disbelief. He laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." He lied. I was a collector who loved to buy and sell antiques. I had been to many flea markets, but I wanted to try something different. I wanted to go to a Craigslist seller who had a rare and old book. I did some research and found a listing for a leather-bound book from the 1700s. It was not on any website, and it had no reviews or ratings. It was perfect for me. I contacted the seller and agreed to meet him at his place. He gave me his address and phone number. He also said something that made me uneasy. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." I thought that was a strange thing to say. Why would he mention that? Or was he trying to hide something? I decided to ignore it and give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just awkward and nervous. I drove to his place and saw a cabin in the woods. There was no sign of life except for a faint light in the window. I parked my car and got out with my money. I walked to the door and knocked. He opened the door and smiled at me. He had no nose, only a hole. He said, "Hello, collector. I've been expecting you." He invited me in and showed me the book. It was amazing. It had a black leather cover with gold letters and symbols. It looked like it was written in Latin or some other ancient language. It looked like it was worth a fortune. He said, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yes, it's incredible." He said, "Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Great. It's yours for $500. I said, "That's a bargain." He said, "There's just one catch." I said, "What is it?" He said, "You have to read it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You have to read it out loud. Right now." I said, "Why?" He said, "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer or anything." He lied. I was looking for a cheap apartment to rent in Chicago, and I stumbled upon a Craigslist ad that seemed too good to be true. It was a spacious one. Bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood, fully furnished, with utilities included, for only $500 a month. The ad said the owner was out of town and needed someone to take care of the place for a few months. It also said that the apartment was available immediately and that I could move in as soon as I sent the first month's rent via PayPal. I was desperate for a place to stay, and I didn't want to miss this opportunity, so I contacted the owner and agreed to the deal. He sent me the address and the code to the lockbox where he kept the keys. He also told me not to worry about signing any lease or contract, and that he trusted me to take good care of his apartment. I packed my bags and drove to the address he gave me. It was a nice-looking building in a quiet street with a sign that said for rent. I found the lockbox and entered the code. Inside, there were 2 keys. One for the main door and one for the apartment. I took them and went inside. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. I opened the door and was amazed by how nice it was. It was exactly like the pictures on Craigslist. A large living room with a couch, a TV, a coffee table, and a fireplace. A kitchen with a fridge, a stove, a microwave, and a dishwasher. A bathroom with a shower, a tub, a sink, and a toilet, and a bedroom with a king-sized bed. A dresser, a closet, and a window. I felt like I had hit the jackpot. I put my bags in the bedroom and decided to explore the apartment more. I noticed that there were some personal items in the apartment, like books, DVDs, clothes, and pictures. I figured they belonged to the owner, and that he didn't have time to pack them before he left. I decided not to touch them and respect his privacy. I went back to the living room and turned on the TV. There was nothing interesting on, so I switched it off. I looked at the fireplace and saw that there were some logs and matches on the mantle. I thought it would be nice to light a fire and relax on the couch. I grabbed some logs and matches and started the fire. As soon as I did, I heard a loud thud from behind me. I turned around and saw that one of the pictures on the wall had fallen to the floor. It was a framed photo of a man and a woman smiling at the camera. They looked like they were in their 40s, and they had similar features. Brown hair, blue eyes, fair skin. They looked like they could be related. I picked up the picture and examined it more closely. On the back of it, there was some writing in black marker. It said, "Mom and Dad, we miss you so much. Love, Jake and Emma." I felt a chill run down my spine. Who were Jake and Emma? And why did they miss their mom and dad? Were they the owner's children? And where were they? I looked at the other pictures on the wall. They were all of the same man and woman, but in different settings. At the beach, at a park, at a wedding, at Disneyland. They looked happy and carefree in every picture. I felt something was wrong. Why would someone leave their apartment with all their personal belongings still inside? And why would they rent it out to a stranger without any paperwork or background check? And who were Jake and Emma? I decided to call the owner and ask him some questions. I took out my phone and dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then someone picked up, but it wasn't him. It was a child's voice, a girl's voice. She said, "Hello, is this Jake?" I was looking for a roommate to share my 2-bedroom apartment in Indiana, and I posted an ad on Craigslist. I got a few responses, but most of them were either too sketchy or too expensive. Then I got an email from a guy named Mike, who said he was a 25-year-old student at Purdue University Northwest. He said he was looking for a place to stay for the semester, and that he could pay $400 a month plus half of the utilities. He also said he was clean, quiet, and respectful. He sounded like a perfect match. So I replied to his email and asked him to tell me more about himself. He sent me a long message, telling me about his hobbies, his major, his family, and his goals. He also attached a picture of himself, smiling at the camera. I was impressed by his message, and I decided to meet him in person. I gave him my address and told him to come over the next day at 6 p.m. He said he would be there. The next day, I cleaned up the apartment and prepared some snacks for our meeting. I was excited to meet Mike and see if we could get along. At 6 p.m., I heard a knock on the door. I opened it and saw Mike standing there, holding a backpack and a suitcase. He looked exactly like his picture, except he was wearing glasses. He smiled and said, "Hi, I'm Mike. You must be your name." I smiled back and said, "Hi, Mike. Come on in." I invited him inside and showed him around the apartment. He seemed to like it, and he complimented me on the decor and the furniture. He also asked me some questions about myself, like what I did for work, what I liked to do for fun, and how long I had lived there. We sat down on the couch and chatted for a while. He was very friendly and easy to talk to. He made me laugh with his jokes and stories. He also seemed genuinely interested in me and my life. I liked him a lot, and I thought we would make great roommates. I offered him some snacks and drinks, and he accepted them gratefully. We continued to talk for another hour or so until he said, "Well, this has been really nice, but I have to go now. I have an early class tomorrow." I said, "Of course, no problem. It was great meeting you." He said, "Likewise. So, can I move in tomorrow?" I said, "Sure, why not? The room is ready for you." He said, "Awesome. Thank you so much." He got up from the couch and picked up his backpack and suitcase. He said, "I'll see you tomorrow then." I said, "Okay, see you tomorrow." He walked towards the door and opened it. Then he turned around and said, "Oh, by the way." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a knife. He said, I'm not really Mike." He lunged at me with a knife. I screamed.